Today we are going to learn about theme, how to find the theme of a story. So first of all, theme is the message of a story. You can also think of the theme as a lesson that you can learn from the story. In general, the theme is the idea from the story that can be applied to new situations. So a big question that many students have is how to find the theme of a story. To show you how to find the theme of a story, we are first going to read a short story and then go through some steps you can take to find the theme. So the story is called The Hare and the Tortoise. A hare is a large rabbit, and a tortoise is kind of like a turtle. So hares are known for being very quick creatures, and tortoises are known for being very slow creatures. So let's begin the story. A hare was making fun of the tortoise one day for being so slow. "Do you ever get anywhere?" he asked with a mocking laugh. "Yes," replied the tortoise, "and I get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and prove it." The hare was much amused at the idea of running a race with the tortoise, but for the fun of the thing he agreed. So the fox, who had consented to act as judge, marked the distance and started the runners off. The hare was soon far out of sight, and to make the tortoise feel very deeply how ridiculous it was for him to try a race with a hare, he lay down beside the course to take a nap until the tortoise should catch up. The tortoise, meanwhile, kept going slowly but steadily, and after a time passed the place where the hare was sleeping. But the hare slept on very peacefully, and when at last he did wake up, the tortoise was near the goal. The hare now ran his swiftest, but he could not overtake the tortoise in time. Okay? So, the hare and the tortoise. How can we find the theme of this story? There are three things that we can look at. The first thing that we can look at are the characters. Okay? When you look at the characters of a story, understand that the author created those characters very purposefully, and he gave the characters certain traits, certain characteristics on purpose. Okay? So we can learn a lot by looking at the characters of a story. When you're looking for theme, some important questions that you can ask yourself about characters are these. Are certain characters more likable than others? What makes the good characters good and the bad characters bad in this story? And then finally, do you know people in your own life who are similar to the characters? What do you think the author is saying about those people or those kind of people? So of course, the characters in our story are the hare and the tortoise. And so just starting off here with the first question, are certain characters more likable than others? Well, the answer to that is definitely yes. Okay? The hare is mean to the tortoise. He makes fun of the tortoise. So I think that makes readers not like the hare very much. Whereas the tortoise is very nice and very friendly. Okay? So I think that it could be widely agreed upon that the tortoise is more likable than the hare. Now, for the second question, what makes the good characters good and the bad characters bad? Okay, well, why do we like the tortoise? I think we like the tortoise because he's nice and polite. And in the race, he works really hard. He keeps going slowly and steadily until he finally wins the race. Okay? What makes the hare so bad? Well, he made fun of the turtle, so he's kind of mean. And the hare thinks he's so fast. He thinks he's the best. And he even takes a nap during the race just to make the tortoise feel even worse about being slow. So the hare is mean and he's boastful. So when you are boastful, it means you tell people that you are better than them. So the hare is boastful and he is mean. And that's what makes us not like him as much. Now, for the last question, do you know people in your own life who are similar to these characters? What is the author saying about those kinds of people? Well, Obviously, in my life, I don't know any hares or turtles that can talk, but I do know people that have some of these same character traits as the hare and the turtle. So I know people in my life who like to boast and brag, and they think that they are the best. And I know people in my life that try to put others down and make other people feel bad and feel worse than them. And that's what the hare does. So I could say that I know people in my life that are similar to the hare. And what is the author saying about those people? Well, the hare lost the race, right? So I think the author is saying that people like that often lose at life or often have a bad consequence. On the other hand, do I know people in my life that are similar to the tortoise? Well, yeah, I know people that um, maybe don't have the most natural skill. So for the tortoise, he's not the most naturally fast creature. Okay, but he works really hard and he works slowly and steadily all the time to try and win the race. And I do know people like that who work really hard and who work all the time to achieve a good result. And so, what is the author saying about those kind of people? Well, the tortoise wins the race, right? So, I think the author is saying that people like that who work really hard and work very consistently all the time are likely to win or have a good outcome. So, we are already pretty close to the theme in the story just by looking at the characters. Another thing that you can look at is the conflict of the story. Okay, so what is the conflict? What is the problem of the story? And how is the conflict similar to what you have seen or experienced? So, this story is about a hare and a turtle who run a race. And in a lot of circumstances, there would be no conflict. There would be no problem with this. These are just two friends running a race. But what creates a conflict, what creates a problem in the story, is that the hare is so mean to the turtle and he makes fun of him and he brags about how he is the best. And that creates a conflict or a problem because it makes the tortoise feel bad. So, how is this conflict similar to what I have seen or experienced? Well, I think all of us know people like the hare that make fun of others and think they are the best. Okay, so whatever theme we can find in the story, we will be able to apply to our own lives because we can think of people that are similar to the hare or the tortoise. Lastly, when you're trying to find the theme of a story, it's a good idea to look at the consequences of the character's actions. So, geez, aren't you glad that you learned the word consequences in our last cluster's vocabulary? So, remember that consequences are the effects or the results of certain actions. So you can examine the character's decisions and examine the effects of those decisions, and that can lead you closer to finding the theme of the story. Okay, so a major action that the hare took was that during the race he lay down and went to sleep. Okay, and there was a consequence to that decision. Okay, the consequence of his decision to do something really mean and make the tortoise feel bad and the consequence of his decision to be lazy and not work consistently toward his goal was that he lost the race. Okay. So I think that's a lesson that we could apply to our life outside of the story, right? When you are lazy and you don't work consistently towards your goal, well, maybe you will not reach it. Okay. When you try hard to make people feel bad on purpose, well, maybe you will have a bad consequence. Okay. Like you will lose at something that you want. So, looking at all of these things, characters, conflict, and consequences can help us understand the theme of a story. Okay? So, we are going to take a look at a story that we read a few weeks ago, and that was the story called The Enabler. And it's about Jerry and his mom. and Jerry didn't have time to study for his test, and so he asked his mom to help him and call him in sick so that he could have extra time to study. And his mom did that. But the story seemed to imply or to say that that was not a good thing that Jerry's mom did, okay, because there were some bad consequences. She enabled him to lie and think that was okay, and she enabled him to be dependent on her, to depend on her to rescue him whenever he had a problem. So, this is a story with a theme that we can apply to life outside this story. Okay. Now, I want you to look at the two theme statements that are in bullet points on the screen. Okay. And I want you to think about which is the best theme statement. So, the first one is this: Jerry's mom should not have called him in sick because of the test. Your second option is some parents help their kids too much, and that can actually hurt them. Which do you think is the better theme statement? To help you answer that question, think about which of those statements can be applied in a new situation, can be applied in life outside the story. Which of these theme statements can you apply to your own life or the people that you know? Okay? So, hopefully, you decided that the second theme statement was best because it is more general and it can apply to other people besides just the people in the story. Okay? The first theme statement has many of the same ideas, but it's too specific because it talks about Jerry and his mom and making a phone call and a test. And these are all details that are too specific. Okay, I cannot apply them to my life, and you probably cannot apply them to your life either because in real life, you don't know Jerry or Jerry's mom. So, theme statements should be general, like the second theme statement, so that they can apply to life in general outside the story. Okay, so now to actually get to a theme statement of the enabler, okay, we're going to look at characters, conflict, and consequences. Now, the characters are pretty simple because there's only two. There's Jerry and there's Jerry's mom. And we're supposed to think about which characters are good characters and which are bad characters. And that's pretty easy too, because in that story, neither one of those characters were really good. They were both fairly dislikable. Okay. Jerry was dislikable because he depended on his mom too much. Okay. He couldn't do things for himself. And it was hard to like his mom too because she told a lie to rescue him, and she helped him too much. Okay, so both of those characters are kind of bad in a way, and thinking about why they seem bad to us can lead us closer to a theme. Okay, because we are not going to want to be like those characters if they are bad, right? So whatever they're doing or whatever they're like is something that we can imagine that we don't want to do and we don't want to be like. In the story, the conflict is that Jerry needs help with this test. And in the story, the solution was that his mom told a lie and called him in sick. And in that way, she rescued him from his problem. Okay. Well, that's the solution that happened in the story. But what else could have happened? What might have been a better solution to that problem? Okay. Was that solution a good solution? Okay. So we're going to think about that. So if this conflict was solved in a bad way, if the solution was not good, we can think to ourselves, well, the story is saying that we should not solve problems like that. Okay? When we are faced with a similar problem, we should not do that. Okay? And the last one is consequences. So, looking at the decisions that the characters make in the story and what the consequences are. So, Jerry's mom made a big decision when she called him in sick so he could study for the test. And her action had consequences. Her actions caused Jerry to be more dependent on her. and to think it's okay to lie. Now, based on all of these things, characters, conflict, and consequences, we can come up with a theme statement, which is this. Okay, we're going to start with parents shouldn't. And this part came from looking at the characters. The characters are dislikable. Okay, it's hard to like them. And so whatever they do, we do not want to do. So we're going to say we should not do what the parents in this story did. Parents shouldn't rescue their kid from every problem because it makes them too dependent. Okay? So in this case, the solution to the conflict was that Jerry's mom rescued him. Okay? But because that was not portrayed in a positive light, our theme statement says that parents shouldn't do that. And why not? Well, the answer to why not comes from looking at the consequences of Jerry's mom's decision. And that was that it made Jerry too dependent on her. Okay. So this theme statement um, is a pretty good theme statement because it takes into account the characters, conflict, and consequences of the story. And it's general enough that it can apply to you in your life. You can think about if your parents do this or not. And I can apply it to my life because I am a parent. So I can think about whether I would make decisions like this or if I shouldn't. So this statement can really apply to anyone who has parents or knows parents. So that's an example of how to come up with a theme statement. The next thing that we're going to do is to read a short story, and you are going to try to come up with some theme statements of what you think that theme of the story is. So the story that we are going to read is called Final Cut. Okay? So, Final Cut. Rachel had to admit it. She was looking forward to the final project for English. They could choose any book and any project. Mr. Hill, Rachel's teacher, explained that he wanted them to work in pairs. That made it even better. But Rachel's feelings changed quickly. Mr. Hill came up to her and said, "Rachel, I want you to work with Jane." "Jane?" Rachel looked over at her. She had mousy brown hair, wore goofy outfits, and never spoke. Rachel heard one of her friends laugh. "Ugh, this project is ruined," thought Rachel. Jane walked over to Rachel's desk and just stood there. "Oh, sit down," Rachel finally said. Jane slumped into a chair and didn't say anything. "Okay," Rachel sighed. "Do you have any ideas?" "I thought we could do a film," Jane said. "Yeah, right," thought Rachel. "How?" Jane continued, "I've been kind of playing around with making films for a while. I could show you." They agreed to meet later. After school, Rachel and her friends were at the library talking. Rachel didn't even notice when Jane got there. One of her friends made things worse by saying, "Rachel, your new friend is here." Once they were settled at the library, things changed. Jane took out a laptop and started a film clip. "This one is about dreams," she said about her first film, which was amazing. "And this one is about my mom." Rachel choked back tears. The short clip was a goodbye to Jane's mother, who had died recently. Rachel asked, "Can you teach me how to do this?" Jane answered, "Yeah, I can." After that, Rachel spent all her free time with Jane. She learned about the camera and about editing. She also learned about her friends. They were mad that she was not spending time with them. Every time they saw Jane, one was sure to say, "Nice outfit," and laugh. Finally, it was project day. Jane let Rachel set up their clip. They had spent hours on it. When it was done, no one said a word. Then Mr. Hill started to clap. Everyone joined in, although Rachel noticed that her friends were not clapping quite as hard as the other kids in the class. After class, Rachel's friends met her at the door. "So now you can get back to normal and drop that geek." Jane was packing up. Rachel looked hard at the girls and turned without saying a word. She started to help Jane with the equipment. Jane flashed her little smile. Then Rachel asked Jane, "Want to get some coffee after school?" All right. After reading this story, and you'll find it in your Google Doc as well if you want to read it again, I want you to try and write what you think the theme of the story might be. And if you have more than one idea, I want you to write down all of your ideas because oftentimes stories have more than one theme. So if you have more than one idea, that's great. Okay? So I want you to write your ideas for what you think the theme of the story is in your Google Doc. Okay? We will talk about finding the theme of that story, and you will share some of your ideas with a partner in class tomorrow.